Well, good day, dear friends. I am glad to welcome you to the OKR course for managers and employees, from setting goals to summarizing results. And today we have our first introductory session, the basics of OKR for managers and employees, where we will get general basic information, what it is, how it appeared, what its specifics are, why it is important, and we will look at other interesting points. Why is it necessary to study OKR? The fact is that when a company implements OKR, both the managers and employees who were the first to learn to work with this system will gain the most benefit and help their company achieve its goals. Moreover, it is a mandatory requirement for any A player in the company to work with OKR. I will explain a bit later. I have implemented the OKR system several times. Typically, the company provides an opportunity. Not everyone can start working with OKR right away, meaning some employees might wait a bit, but those who start working with the OKR system first, the company doesn't exactly encourage them, but rather keeps them on a special account, meaning it treats them quite well. Let's move on. This is the course site. This course is for managers and employees. We have a separate course for HR, more of an internal focus on how to launch this system, and this is for managers and employees on how to work when it's launched in the company. I'll start with a brief introduction. My name is Mike Pritula, if we are not acquainted. I have worked at Alpha Bank, on the STB channel, at Wargaming, at Preply, Ideas, and have consulted for PeopleForce. And I created Mike Pritula Academy and Papa HR. I first encountered the OKR system at Wargaming. At that time, the company was working with annual goals, and I suggested it to the division I was working with, Global Publishing. Test the OKR system. At that time, we didn't have the software for it yet. It was just being implemented. I made an Excel table and started entering employees' goals, showing employees each other's goals and asking them to consider them, but it was a test of the OKR system. Later, when I joined the company Preply, I fully implemented OKR there. I implemented the system for working with OKR. It was an innovative system at that time. It was the system 15.5. The year 2017, few were still working with OKR, and I remember when we interviewed candidates from large companies like EPAM, Luxoft, SoftServe, and many other large companies, international companies, and we were looking for employees in Europe. We had a candidate from Booking and from other well-known companies, and we said, we work with OKR. They were like, really? We were like, yes, we even have the 15.5 system. They said, you even have a system? I said, yes, opened my laptop, showed them, look, we have all the video goals of everyone. They were like, wow, you guys are cool. We don't have that yet. Then I did the same in the company ideals, also based on the 15.5 system, implemented an OCR system, PeopleForce, a company I consulted, particularly on the performance review process. I provided quite good consultation. Well, and I've been teaching the OCR system for probably around 5 years since our first course on OCR appeared, so I have quite a lot of experience. A bit about my experience in hiring. When I worked in human resources, I had many different awards, nominations, and wins, diplomas, certificates, international presentations, and so on. I also have international certificates, the most popular in the HR field. These are HRCI, SHRM, and HCI. And the Academy has also established itself well for more than 10 years, with a high level of loyalty from our students, with awards from YouTube, with local awards. So there is experience as well. In my work, and you will see this today, I combine both my personal practice, which is 20 years, both the best research, the best approaches, and the best experiences of international companies. Therefore, Our courses are always this kind of combination. I would appreciate it if you could write about yourself, what you do for a living, and for those watching on YouTube, please write in the comments as well. And meanwhile, I will talk about the homework. There will be 4 homework assignments in this course. They will not be very difficult actually, but they will allow you to practice the acquired knowledge. And for the completed homework, we will issue a diploma stating that you have learned to work with the OKR system. We issued the diploma on the online platform Credible, the most popular in the world, the best in the world. Google works with it, Harvard works with it, and other well-known companies. What does the course program look like? It's not very large, not stressful. Only the most important things are here. Today we get acquainted with this system. In the second session, we will talk about how managers and employees behave and what they do when a company launches OKRs and how goals are set. In the third lesson, we will talk about what happens within the cycle, meaning the goals are set, but what comes next. And in the fourth lesson, how the work proceeds when the cycle concludes and the results are summed up. There are all the examples there, guidelines, some questions, templates. We will look at all of this. Clearly there's a start, middle, and end, and then accordingly the cycle restarts in the company. We will talk about this today. The next 3 sessions will provide you with a comprehensive set of practical information, and today you will learn the theory. What will we talk about today? We will learn what OKR is, its definition and principles. We will look at its history, where it originated, how it helps a company, what leaders should do, several interesting and useful tips for using the OKR system, and how it affects employees. Here's the plan for today. Let's get started. So I'll begin with quotes from Larry Page. He is the former CEO and co-founder of Google. Now he and Sergey Brin are just shareholders. They have a hired manager, but he once said that he wished he had this methodology when they first founded Google, or even earlier when he was his only company himself. Even though it was always painfully difficult for me, good ideas with brilliant execution are the only way to work wonders. That is why the OKR method is needed for executing great ideas. What is OKR? Well, OKR is called a management methodology, or you could say a managerial practice, which allows the company to focus efforts on common important goals across the entire organization. Efforts from both employees and managers. What do these letters stand for? OKR. It has 2 parts. Objectives. These are goals, and key results. These are key results. Objectives. Goals. It is what needs to be achieved, no more, no less. By definition, goals are important, specifically achievable, and ideally inspiring. With proper formulation and application, they will become an antidote to thoughtless abstract thinking and corresponding actions. Key results are metrics and monitoring of how we will achieve the goal. Today, you will see how this works. In the OKR system, there is a strong focus on key results because they must be specific, tied to deadlines. Most often these are quarterly cycles, ambitious yet realistic, and most importantly, measurable and verifiable. You will see that these key results are very similar to KPI. Essentially, both KPI and key results are metrics, just with a slightly different scheme of applying metrics. In the KPI system, metrics are defined for positions long-term, once every 3 years, for example. In the OKR system, metrics can change. For instance, if the company has chosen quarterly cycles, quarterly, that is 1 quarter I, as an employee, work with one set of metrics, and the next quarter some metrics might be different. A key result must always include a number. The goal itself can even be long-term. That is, over the course of a year, one or two goals might not change and can have the same wording. They can be set for a year or even longer, but the key results will change. When all key results are achieved, the goal can be considered fulfilled. Let's start with something simple. Suppose I decided to lose weight by a certain date, next summer, and I'm thinking to myself, what will I work on in the next quarter? I will try to lose weight. I will try to reduce some of my measurements. I will walk a certain number of steps. I will burn a certain number of calories with exercise. I start generating key results for myself. After a quarter, maybe something else will be more important to me. I will focus on something else within the same goal. Maybe I'll focus more on sleep and giving up sugar and flour. In the third quarter, I might choose something else as my priority, but the goal will remain. What is the value of OKR? OKR helps to identify key goals, direct efforts, coordinate work, and connect different production stages. If the company is manufacturing, if the company is service-based, then different stages of customer service. It ensures cohesion and meaningfulness of the organization's work. Let's move on. What is considered the most important and striking in OKR? They are called the 4 superpowers of OKR. The first superpower is prioritization and commitment. Effective organizations focus on what is important and clearly understand what is not important. OKRs help leaders make difficult decisions, meaning to prioritize and discard certain things. They enhance the efficiency of interaction between departments, teams, and employees. By eliminating chaos and confusion, OKRs ensure focus, which is essential to succeed. A bit later, I will talk about how with OKRs you shouldn't choose too many goals. Once, when I was implementing OKRs at Ideals, our financial director set 15 OKRs for himself. How many OKRs do you think he achieved in a quarter? Not a single one. Barely made any progress on a few. He spread himself so thin that he couldn't achieve anything at all. Let's move on. The second superpower is synchronization and transparency. By transparency, it is meant that everyone can see everyone's goals. The goals of everyone, even the CEO, are visible to everyone in the organization. The company's goals extend to everyone, and thanks to knowing the company's goals, employees plan their own goals and connect them with the company's goals. You know, it's quite funny, but some companies have a kind of fear, like how is it that everyone will know everyone's goals? But I see something else. Look, in your company, I am sure that the organizational structure is available to employees in some way. Employees can find out each other's positions and departments. OKR is just a continuation. By position and department, you can basically guess who is working on what. Why hide everyone's goals? After all, as a team, you should interact to help the company. Hiding goals is not just absurd, it's stupid. It's counterproductive when people don't know who is working on what. Imagine you and I have to build a house. We were given some goals, but we don't know who is working on what. We must build the house together. What's the point of not knowing who is working on what? It's nonsense. It's much more effective to clearly know who is working on what, who has which tasks. Based on that, you can better plan your work. Superpower 3, monitoring. OKR rely on data. There are a ton of systems for working with OKR. They are built on regular check-ins, ranking, and adjustment of targets, as well as constant reevaluation. In the spirit of accountability without judgment, if the key result was not achieved, appropriate actions are taken to reach the goal or to review or replace it if necessary. Some managers mistakenly believe that if an employee achieves only 50 to 60% of their objective key results for the quarter, then the employee is bad or everything is really bad. But that's not the case. The point is that OKR finally helped measure for the first time how well an employee is achieving what they should achieve. It's like a diagnostic tool. When you take a blood test and are told that your sugar level is high, you are not scolded for it. That would be absurd. You are told, you should make certain adjustments, and you think, oh, finally I realized that my sugar level is high. It's the same with OKR. It's a diagnostic tool. It's not a tool to scold someone or, God forbid, to fire someone. Superpower 4, the drive for outstanding results. OKR motivates us to improve by achieving more than we thought possible. By testing our limits and granting the right to make mistakes, they unleash our creative, ambitious nature. Interestingly, the company Google, we know, is one of the most successful companies in the world today. She achieved what she achieved largely because both the employees and the leaders set very ambitious goals for themselves, goals they didn't always believe in, but they said, let's give it a try. Let's try to increase the number of YouTube users 1,000-fold, but that's unrealistic, it's impossible. However, when you set an ambitious goal, you start thinking, okay, what could possibly lead to such outstanding results? And other solutions are found, and then it turns out to be possible. In general, successful companies develop in this way, companies like those of Elon Musk. Everyone thought it was impossible to recover this rocket stage debt, to bring the carrier into orbit and return it intact. In general, it was always deemed impossible, but Elon Musk set the goal. For space flights to be cheap, we must learn to return this, I forgot what it's called, the module that accelerates in the first few minutes, and learned to land it. Yes, at first it didn't work, now he has learned to land it and reuse it. Now let's get acquainted with the history. It's important to know the history of its emergence to better understand how it works. In the world of goal setting, several key stages and a few key people who made contributions are highlighted. Reports usually start with Peter Drucker, who in his book The Effective Executive published almost 60 years ago. He told managers, it would be good for you to set annual goals for your employees. Instead of just giving them commands, set them goals. Now it seems obvious, strange not to know and not to do this, but back then it was something revolutionary. Then George Doran says that managers will be able to achieve much more if they formulate goals using the SMART methodology: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so they started using this approach. It is still popular, and working with goals has improved. Then Norton and Kaplan said it is very good to find important metrics for the company. Not just a set of metrics, but in 4 directions: finances, processes, customers, and development. And the company will be all right. Well, and then John Doerr, someone calls him John Doerr. It's written in English as D-O-E-R, I think, with a double R. I write Doerr, some say Doerr, well, it doesn't matter. John Doerr, you can say it like that, introduces OKR at Google. So often a system for working with goals is seen. Actually, this is not entirely accurate information. John Doerr did not create the OKR system, but he brought it to the company Google, and thanks to him, it became known to the whole world because he propagated it. Interestingly, long before Peter Drucker, Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford company, and Taylor is an economist, he wrote a lot about management. They believed that the most effective and profitable organization is authoritarian. However, in 1926, Mary Parker, in the article Giving Orders, asserted that joint decision-making and collaboration between managers and employees yields much more effective results. Imagine 100 years ago, someone came up with what is now part of OKRs, and what many still have not realized or implemented. In the mid-20th century, Drucker said that a company should be based on trust and respect for workers, not just the mechanisms for generating profit. In 1969, Edwin Locke, a psychology professor at Merlin University, developed a theory that Andy Grove became a supporter of. It was Andy Grove, the founder of the OKR system, who said, challenging goals stimulate performance much more effectively than simple ones. But look, what do many companies suffer from? They set their employees very simple goals. Moreover, Edwin Locke said that specific challenging goals yield higher returns than vague and abstract ones. Let's move on. Andy Grove, there he is in the photo. Guess where? I think Bill Gates is to the left. Many know he is on the left and Andy Grove is on the right. He is a person from Intel. He was concerned about the problem that people work a lot, but seem to be standing still and achieving little, and he was looking for a solution to fix this. That was more than 50 years ago. Back then, Intel was the most progressive company. Microsoft was still small, but Intel was a mature progressive company. That is, Intel 50 years ago was like Google 15 years ago. Google, in principle, is already a familiar company. There are many companies similar to Google, but once Google was something out of this world, and many people think that OCR is something trendy. But look, there's a recording of Andy Grove's speech preserved. In my opinion, let's see, somewhere there in San Francisco, in front of the students, where he explains the principles of OCR. We will now watch this legendary, I would even say historical, video a little bit. I want to dominate. We want to dominate the mid-range microcomputer component business. That's an objective. Вот туда мы и хотим попасть. Основной результат за этот квартал. 10 new designs for A0 ACIT 5. One key result. This is a milestone. Two are not the same, but this is the first milestone we can achieve in the next period. For those who are interested, take a look. It was important for me to show you that this recording is now more than 50 years old back then. The OKR system has already appeared. Sean Covey in the book The 4 Disciplines of Execution wrote, "It is practically irrelevant what you know. Knowledge is secondary and execution is most important." OKR is about the science of execution. When did Intel start using OKR? In 1971. Just imagine, that's 53 years ago. Back then, Intel was only 3 years old. It was a young company, but even then they began to apply it. How did he present OKR growth with his company? He said that the goal is the direction. What was in the video you just heard. We want to dominate the mid-priced microcomputer components market. That's the goal. That's where we're headed. And the key results for this quarter are to sign 10 new agreements with clients for the 8085 processor. That's one key result. Milestone as it's called. Those familiar with project management know that project management essentially works too. There are expected project outcomes and there are milestones. Therefore, project management has a lot in common with OCR too. Next, the criteria that Andy Grove put forward for a key result. He says that a key result must be measurable. I will say that a proper system for working with OKRs, for example, PeopleForce, will not allow you to carry an OKR without a number. Some allow entering OKR in a yes-no format, but generally it's better with numbers. At the end of the given period, you should look at the work result and confidently answer the question, did I complete the task or not? Yes, no, it's simple. Well, preferably with numbers, no criticism. And we need to understand whether we have achieved dominance in the mid-range microcomputer components market or not. We will argue about this for several years, but in the next quarter, we will definitely know whether we have concluded 10 new agreements or not. How was the OCR system born at Intel? We saw that it started working in 1971, and by 1975 it was fully operational. Every knowledge worker, there were also workers in production, the so-called blue-collar workers, so OCR was more geared towards office employees, formulated a monthly individual OCR. That means, in Intel, it was initially a monthly system. The first OCR, which was recorded by John Bohr, an employee, he considers himself a student of Andy Grove. He was a fan of this theory and later took it to Google, talked a lot about it, wrote a book, gave many speeches, and thanks to John Doerr, this system became popular. He shares what John Doerr's first OCR was like. The goal is to demonstrate the superiority of the 8080 microprocessor over the Motorola 6800. Key results he had were to write 5 benchmarks, develop a demo version, create sales training materials for the field team, and survey 3 clients to verify the effectiveness of the material. The main principles from Andy Grove regarding OKRs: less is more. You don't need 5 to 10, just 3. It will be enough. Formulate goals from the bottom up. Employees synchronize with managers. Do not impose anything. Remember flexibility. Don't be afraid of failures. Consider it a tool, not a weapon. And patience and determination are important. Intel says that once OCR saved their entire business, they later called this situation Operation Crush. It was a fight for the survival of the young corporation Intel, when it was necessary to sharply change all employees' priorities in just 4 weeks, and this allowed the company to quickly orient itself, because there was a situation where competitors released almost exactly the same microprocessor, and it was necessary to quickly prove to the whole world that Intel was indeed better, and they succeeded. Later, a senior manager from Motorola said, "It took me more time to book a flight ticket from Chicago to Arizona than it took Intel to launch their advertising campaign and prove to the whole world that Intel is better than Motorola." Well, here's another example. OCR Intel. Intel's corporate goal is to make the 8286 the most efficient 16-bit microprocessor family, and the criteria: develop 5 benchmarks to demonstrate superiority, reconfigure the product package, introduce the 8 MHz chip into production, test the mathematical coprocessor, a specific date, display 4 departmental goals. All departments then looked, based on the company's goals, at what they needed to plan for themselves. Some engineering departments set a goal to deliver 500 8086 chips with a frequency of 8 MHz in CGW by the 30th of May. Key results: prepare final schematics for the photo mask by the 5th of April, prepare masks for version 2.3 by the 9th of April, prepare test films by the 15th of May, and start production no later than May 1st. Why didn't MBO work? Why do companies switch to OCR? They stagnate without updating MBO because management by objectives is usually set for a year. This MBO method does not support team autonomy. They come down to incorrect key performance indicators and are tied to salaries. People are afraid to take risks and set ambitious goals. Growth tried to solve 2 puzzles of his system: how to define and measure the results of knowledge workers, and what can be done to improve these results. He actually called his method MVO, Intel Management by Objectives, and it was John Doerr who came up with the name OKR, Objectives and Key Results. So this name belongs to John Doerr, which is why they say that John Doerr invented OKR. Differences. a sort of comparative characteristic, but we've already discussed that. How do OKRs help synchronize strategic management with everyday tasks? Globally, companies around the world suffer from disengagement. This is constantly mentioned by the Gallup company. People are disengaged, people are ready to leave for another company for a small raise. Many believe that finding a better job is not a problem at all. As a result, only 30%, according to the best data from Gallup. In fact, it is often even lower. People in the world are engaged, and low engagement leads to poor business results. At the same time, both Gallup and Deloitte support this, saying that for people to be engaged, they need specific goals that are documented and accessible to all employees. Goals lead to unity, understanding, and job satisfaction. If you recall the most popular engagement survey in the world called Gallup Q12, Gallup places this survey at the top. Do you know what specific results are expected of you at work? They say that if the answer here is no, then the chances of being engaged drop by exactly half. Therefore, it is in the first place. But goals are not a panacea. If people have conflicting priorities, unclear, meaningless, or arbitrarily changing goals, they become frustrated, cynical, and demotivated. Therefore, what is needed are not just goals, but a good system of the right goals. What does the OKR system do? It aligns goals with the team's overall mission. It takes into account tasks and deadlines while adapting to circumstances. It provides feedback and celebrates victories, both big and small. It encourages us to strive for what seemed unattainable. OKR in the life of Google, how did it come about? John Doerr came to the company Google to invest money, and there was nothing in the company Google. When he said, guys, there is a system, we worked by it at Intel. Google then had about 30 employees, they were still in a garage. Sergey Brin said, we need some kind of organizational principle. We don't have one, so this will do. And then it turned out to be a very cool principle. Now, the OCR system is used by top companies and, of course, even the smallest non-top companies. In general, this system is available to everyone without exception. It doesn't apply only to Intel and Google. It is also important to understand that OKR is not a tool to shift responsibility onto employees and forget about it. In the early years of Google, Larry Page allocated 2 days each quarter for the personal analysis of OKR for each developer. By the way, this is Google's first office. It was in a garage. This is Larry Page and Sergey Brin. These are the guys who founded the company. That's how they worked. Also, OKR is the only way to manage relatively large teams. When managers have more than 7 employees. For example, in Google, a manager might have 20 subordinates. And the manager will be overwhelmed trying to independently set goals for each one. In the case of OKR, employees set their own goals and managers approve them, quarterly or yearly. Initially, Google practiced quarterly OKR, then added yearly ones, and the process became a 2-level system. Then Sundar Pichai took over the company and he moved to a single-level annual scheme because Google had already become a huge corporation that moves on its own momentum to maintain dynamic processes and track goal achievement. With clearly established deadlines, each department reports quarterly and sometimes every 6 weeks. This is essentially among the key results. That is, it slightly simplified the system but did not abandon regularity. The main principles of OCR. The most important thing we should remember is that OCR is quarterly in most cases, not annually like in the MBO system. Management by objectives. They are transparent, everyone knows the goals, They are flexible, allowing for mistakes and changing goals. They are ambitious. According to the OKR system, it is recommended to set such goals so that if you achieve 70% of them, you can say, okay, that's fine. That is, you set your goals high so that 70% is okay. And this is a tool for work, not a reason for employee evaluation or even bonus payments. Just like you don't pay bonuses based on a to-do list or Google Calendar. It's just a work tool. It's simply effective. Also, the OKR system does not cancel annual goals. It doesn't cancel something else. It fits in perfectly. It's ideal when a company has a plan, the company's strategy for the year, annual departmental goals, and annual budgets, and the OKR system that helps in achieving annual goals. And then there is also the system of regular one-to-one meetings between managers and employees, which helps implement OKR. This set of practices is an ideal tool for execution, an ideal tool for implementing any strategy, the role of the leader. In this course, we will look at both the leader's role and the employee's role. Today, briefly, the task of the manager is to set the strategic direction. That is, the manager sets the goals first, then the employees look at the manager's goals and synchronize their goals with the manager's goals. Formulating ambitious and achievable goals, he sets such high goals for himself and helps employees. If an employee sets goals that are too simple, he says, let's raise them a bit. Clear communication, lots of communication, regular evaluation and adjustment. This is where one-on-ones will be useful, support and motivation of the team, feedback and recognition of achievements, and being a role model. Focus on critically important goals as the OKR system allows for goal setting. What you choose for these goals is important. There is a great system, a great methodology called 4D, the 4 disciplines of execution. In my opinion, when I learned about it, it seemed to me that OKR and 4D are like yin and yang. They just work perfectly together. It's just a superb complement to each other. So now we will learn about 4D, which is the 4 disciplines of execution. The first, yes, this is the description of this methodology. First, you need to choose one or two main goals. In the 4D methodology, they are called WIGs, wildly important goals. Why 2 or 3? Because if there are more, in the end, less is achieved. It's better to initially choose fewer goals and achieve them all than to choose more and accomplish even less. The Apple principle, yes, there will always be more good ideas than the opportunities to realize them. That is, you must consciously understand that yes, you have a lot of ideas, but you won't be able to work on all of them. I choose only 2 or 3 ideas for myself. What is a critically important goal? If you have many ideas, many objectives you want to write down, ask yourself which of these 10 goals will have the maximum impact on the others and keep 2 or 3 that have the maximum influence on the other goals. That's all. Remember that you can spend no more than 20% of your time on OKRs because you will have routine. This is called the whirlwind of urgent matters. You arrive at work with a pile of emails, some calls, meetings, colleagues coming by, tasks to develop a document. To actually focus on any work related to OKRs, you'll have about 20% of your time. It is also recommended to record a critical goal in the format from X to YZ. Like this, it is best recorded. And results, not just a number, but I need to increase something from this amount to that amount by such and such date. Once John Kennedy used this, yes, he clearly formulated a critical goal for us to land a man on the moon and safely return him to Earth by the end of the decade. That was the main priority. I am not interested in anything else. This is your main task, and it was achieved. No one else has managed to repeat it since then. The second principle, the second discipline, works with leading indicators. This is a brilliant thing that I also recommend using for key results. All metrics are called what is usually mistakenly referred to as KPIs. They can be divided into 2 types, lagging and leading. In English, it's leading and lagging. Lagging is logging. Lagging is the result that can only be discussed as a fact and only as such. A leading indicates the probability of achieving the lagging. For example, take a car driver. How many times the car broke down is his lagging indicator. He doesn't influence it. He can't say, car, don't break down. But how many times the driver maintained the car is leading. He can influence it, and the amount of car maintenance affects the number of breakdowns. What is the advantage? Leading indicators can be influenced, lagging ones cannot. The problem is that everyone mostly chooses lagging indicators. They are always on the surface, very easy to calculate, and they're talked about most often. To find also leading indicators, you need to put in some effort and also for their calculation. A vivid example is when we want to lose weight, we set a goal for ourselves. I want to weigh 60 kilograms, for example. Stepping on the scale is easy, no problem at all. You can do it every day, but when you step on the scale, you're not influencing anything. You can't just tell yourself to lose weight, like lose 100 grams. You can lose weight if you analyze calories and influence them by consuming less and spending more. That is, they need to be counted, which is a bit more difficult. Counting food consumption in calories and how you spend them. Therefore, everyone knows that you can lose weight from diet and exercise, but few people count calories consistently. Why doesn't this work? Yes, just looking at the weight Edward Deming, a brilliant economist, he is credited with the recovery of Japan's economy after the First and Second World Wars. He said managing a company based on financials, data, which are always lagging indicators. It's like driving a car and looking in the rearview mirror. You see what you've passed, but you don't look ahead. How does this system work? The lagging indicator is like a boulder that needs to be moved, and the leading indicator is like a lever that can move the boulder. The third discipline is that you need a scoreboard. People need to have the indicators in view, then they are engaged. If people do not see how they are succeeding, they quickly lose interest. And the display is not some kind of dull, boring table. Yes, preferably something visual. Right now, dashboards like Power BI or similar ones are popular in companies. It's cool. Cool when an employee has their metrics in front of them. Characteristics of a good scoreboard. It is simple, visible, shows both leading and lagging indicators, and you can immediately understand whether you are winning or losing. The fourth discipline is regular reporting. For example, when team members report to each other, without reporting, the desire to achieve something is lost. It's like training with a coach in the gym or on your own. When there is a coach, you understand he is controlling you. When you're alone, there's no control. Well, you can relax. Therefore, it is recommended, and we will talk about this, to implement the practice of meetings according to OKR. We will discuss this in detail later, so I won't focus on it today. This is a description of such a meeting. How do OKRs motivate teams to achieve high results? The fact is that OKR, as it is sometimes mistakenly thought, is not yet another system for describing what an employee does and so on. For example, when someone comes to me and asks what OKRs to come up with for an accountant, I say you should not come up with OKRs for an accountant. You need to ask what contribution the accountant can make to the company's strategy and what they can do differently that they haven't done before. This should be OKR. Jim Stewart said that in order to achieve goals you haven't reached before, you have to do something you've never done before. This is a fundamental thing. You don't record what you already do every day in OKRs. It's pointless. In the oceans, you write down something new that you want to do. In this sense, oceans are very much like a New Year's promise. It's called a New Year resolution. When you say next year, I will learn English, I will lose weight, I will increase my income, you don't say that next year I will brush my teeth 700 times. Next year, I will take a shower 400 times. Next year, I will eat 1,000 times. And so on. Well, you're going to do that anyway. So why write down what is obvious that you will do? You must shower, brush your teeth, eat, sleep, and so on. But it is absurd and kind of idiotic to write down how many times you will sleep if you are going to do it anyway. For the new year, write down something you will do differently to get a different result. Ocean, the same thing. The recruiter in the oceans can't possibly close a certain number of vacancies. They will close them anyway. What's the point of something new? Learn to source candidates on LinkedIn to increase the entry funnel for a vacancy from an average of 100 candidates now to 300 candidates later, and that's where the objectives are. Therefore, a reminder of why we need oceans is because we have the so-called whirlwind of urgent tasks. A routine that swirls around us, making us do things at work on autopilot, but there are goals that the company wants to achieve. They require some new actions from the employees, and OKRs help all employees plan something additional to take the company to a new level. How does the situation in a company develop without objectives and key results? The focus of the teams is often scattered. Everyone looks in their own direction, sometimes even in different directions, while the company says, we need to go here. So, objectives and key results create control. One of the most important roles of management is conveying expectations to employees. People will do what management checks and measures, not just what it expects, thanks to the OKR system. Management checks and measures how much employees are doing what the company needs to achieve its goals. Thanks to this, everyone starts looking in the same direction, and the company finally begins to move where it wants to go. Well, and another interesting thing, don't think that the OKR will be implemented well and clearly right away. There is the chaos theory, and its author Tim Harford said, show me a successful complex system, and I will show you that it developed through trial and error, meaning it never happens immediately in my experience of implementing OKR. Initially, half of the company doesn't want to work with it at all. They sabotage and ignore it. 50% of the remaining half set goals and forget about them forever, while 50% remember and work on them somehow. And interestingly, when you go through about 4 cycles, that is 4 quarters, a year, everyone gradually gets involved, becomes interested, learns, and starts achieving something. Homework for those who are with us in the course. Write your quarterly OKRs for your specific position in the format of a goal. What I want to achieve? Yes, it will be 2 or 3 goals, and for each goal, key results, how I will achieve them. Similar to how it was today, books. It very well describes the work of OKRs. The former HR director of Google, of course, John Doerr, wrote a book. And in general, there is a book about the company Google for those interested in studying this company in more detail. What's next? Today, there was an introduction to the system, an introduction to how it works and its features. Next, we move to practice. We will discuss in detail how to set one OKR, how to work after setting it, and how to summarize. The next 3 sessions are focused as much as possible on practice. That's all for today. Thank you to everyone who was online with me. I invite you to take this course and to involve your employees. This course can be organized in a corporate format. For your company online or provide corporate access to the recorded format, contact support for guidance if you plan to implement OKR in your company. That's all. Thank you, friends, and see you soon. Stay tuned for announcements. Goodbye.